Yet once again, we return. GYGB War Report Show. Your man Roberto Flack, Coltrane.
What up? What up?
The summer is wrapping. I mean, pretty much. I mean, for us parents, is wrapping up as the kids are going back to school, which really signals the end of the summertime. And not a very busy summer for boxing. As really isn't most of the time, but we always have like this one fight that sticks out. We really didn't get that this year.
Right.
The fall lineup where it's unraveling. There's a particular fight we still don't have any word of, but we did get an announcement today. We'll hop into it, later on. But and obviously, big fight this weekend. Big rematch. This is Anthony Joshua's second rematch. As he is going yet again to grab his former world championships, facing Alexander Usyk in Saudi Arabia, which again, if you're in stateside, the coverage starts at 2 p.m. Eastern time on DAZN. So, just a FYI, because sometimes you get lost with the
Roberto. So the main card, does it start at 12 or 2?
2. The coverage starts at 2 o'clock from what I read today, which to me is the pay-per-view or the main card, I guess whenever the main 4 fights are. So,
So what time do you think the actual main
I'm
event
thinking like 5:30, maybe 5. I always tell people.
Oh, great. That's even better for my situation. Okay.
Yeah. Like, as technology is, be by your phone, be by your TV, be by like around like 5-ish.
Fire stick,
Yeah. So we'll get into that. But before we get to that, we did see this past weekend, the return of Teofimo Lopez as he made his debut at 140 pounds, facing Pedro Campa. And there's a lot we were told, going on outside the ring as a concern, him losing the Kambosos fight and how that turned out. And really a roller coaster of, if you think about it, like a year and change for him from defeating Vasily Lomachenko,
right?
COVID hitting, and dealing with all that. And actually, he fought him during COVID, if I'm not mistaken.
He did,
but it was after the scheduling of the camp,
right?
Yeah. I think, if memory serves me right,
2020 is like a blur, so I don't remember.
Oh my God, man! Yeah. It's like the year that never happened, right?
Right.
But Teofimo Lopez he hit this rocket, and then came. I'm not gonna say a crashing halt because he's still here, but he got derailed, so to speak, when he lost to George Kambosos in an exciting fight. But following that, there was talks of health issues. There was talks of just things going on outside the ring. But he made his debut at 140 pounds, where we've been talking is the division that I think is going to map out to be one of the, when we talk about 135, it's cool, but it's like what we always say, you can't call a division hot if nobody's fighting any, each other.
I mean, so like real rap. You know what I mean? It's what I just want to get into Teofimo first. A win is a win. Andy Reid always got this saying that he always say, any win in this league is a good win. I feel that way about boxing. I put a post up the other day about Andre Ward saying that everybody that he fought, he looked at as a threat because they was trying to take something that he has. And I feel the same way about Campos. Not that he was some guy that on paper he couldn't beat Teo, but the fight got to play out in the ring. He came back after the long layoff, turmoil. That was kind of self-inflicting. I feel he kind of created for himself. It wasn't like man-made. It wasn't organic turmoil. It was turmoil that, listen, he fought Kambosos. He fought him reckless. He fought him emotional train wreck. And He got dropped in the fight. Fight was a little bit more closer than what people would like to believe it was. But Kambosos, I thought, won the fight. But he's more talented than Kambosos. In all due respect to Kambosos, he shouldn't be losing to a fighter like Kambosos. But because he fought with such rage and anger, given the fact that the fight was canceled, like you said, because of COVID, and the mere fact that he was, paying too much attention to his mentions about the Lomachenko fight being close, but you beat Lomachenko at the end of the day. Who gives a damn if people say it's close or what have you? He was the first guy that convincingly beat him, even though he got technically on paper got a loss to Orlando Salido.
Toledo,
to Salido. But so who cares what the mentions are saying? You beat Lomachenko. George Kambosos, the only way he was going to beat you by getting in here, renting space up here, and you allow for him to rent space, and it played out in the ring. So then he went on a tear and a tyrant. Oh, it's me against the world, and he had an injury, which was legitimate. But like we always say, Roberto, we've been following the sport a long time. There's contracts that are signed. You don't have to take these fights if you feel as though you're dealing with some sort of injury. You don't have to take the fight. You can move on and sit out, whatever. You took the fight. You took the L. You got to take what come with it. Now, to his credit, he came back. Now, like I said, it is what it is. He fought a guy that was put in front of him for him to look good against. That's not his fault. That's been going on through the history of boxing when you're coming back with your first fight back off injury. Most fighters do that, So, to your other point, we got to get these guys eventually have to start fighting each other. Now, granted, he's in a division right now. Everybody got dates. Regis, Zepeda, Josh Taylor, Catterall, like all these guys are tied up right now. So it's technically nothing he can do. Like he just kind of got to wait out. Oh, what's that other kid name? What's his name? Because I saw him and Tio going back and forth. I think he was top ranked. Mexican kid. Somewhat of a puncher.
Barbosa?
I think that's him. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So they're saying that could potentially be the fight, which is not a bad fight, just to stay busy while these other guys are tied up. But I thought he looked good, given the situation. You're supposed to beat the guys they put in front of you. That's what he did. I think Teofimo's a lot more talented than a lot of these guys up here. But again, your mental fortitude is going to constantly be put to test. And
exactly.
At some point, it's going to come. No, it's going to come a point where he's going to have to check his ego and dig in his bag and rely strictly on his physical abilities. And all that plays a factor, like training, blocking out the white noise. Look, I'm not telling these guys to be on social media because that's how they create their brand. I would never say that. But if you're going to be on there, you have to understand that, Tio, you're a star in this sport now. So being a star to whom one is given a lot is expected. So people are going to expect a lot from you. And when you lose or when you mess up, like Floyd always had this great line. He said, when I lose, it's like a fighter losing 5 times because that's how people are going to take my loss. Teal's the same way. Like for all the people that love him, for all the people that love Lomachenko, hated him because he beat Lomachenko. So it comes with the territory. So when you're on social media and you paying attention to your mentions, you're going on rants and things like that, be ready for the flip side. But you can capitalize off of it. Speaking of Roy Jones, Roy said, I love when fans want to see me lose because I know they're going to pay money to see me. So he can actually, he's now like this lightning rod, polarizing figure that can capitalize. Now everybody's calling him out now. Like already he's the head honcho in the division on paper, like name-wise. So he can turn this into something crazy, like lucrative, I should say, financially.
I think it's to the point where we know how good he is when he's dialed in.
Right.
And I guess the next step now is to see him against the elite guys and him being the guy that beat Lomachenko, that was pumping the jab, that was countering Lomachenko coming in. And, he's going to be tested at some point. And, you know, you mentioned some of
Absolutely.
those names. So it's, you know, it's names like, yeah, like Barbosa, Jose Ramirez. I think he probably gets those kind of guys first. And then we'll see with the world titles. But there's fights there, man. I mean, there's
Absolutely. And the
very,
third,
really good
and
fights.
not to mention too, Roberto, we also have to factor in the smaller guys will be moving up. Antoine Russell's up there too. We forgot about him, but you got guys,
Yeah.
you got guys like obviously Haney, um, uh, Shakur may be up there one day. I don't know if they'll cross paths or not, but
Yeah.
it's not that far away. Because these guys are so talented skill wise. You're saying in like 2 years or so, Shakur could possibly be at 140 pounds in 2 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you just never know, man.
You just never know, like how boxing plays. But for now, for the immediate future, there's a plethora of guys for him to fight. Ryan Garcia's up there.
And well, technically he's at 140 pounds. So
Yeah, he's at 140 pounds. So and Gervonta, I forgot about him. So it's like it's so much at his disposal if he play his cards right. And like you said, just fight the guys. That's the key thing here is that this is what boxing got to get back to. Fight the best available guys, best available option. Because I feel like availability is lacking. It's like I want to fight the most beatable guy rather than the most available guy.
Yeah. Which again, it dilutes the sport. At the end of the day.
You look at the age of these fighters, right? You're like, yo, do you know what such and such was doing by 25 and 26? We're at such a snail's pace of like dissecting these guys. It's like, you want to have patience, but it's like, why invest in something that's not investing back into you, right? Like we all invest into the sport, but the participants and all the participants involved not investing back into the consumer to help feed the sport. You know what I mean? It's just challenging and frustrating. Like I said, though, 140, all those guys are tied up with fights, which are good fights, by the way. So I guess you just got to see who drops and then get the winner, call winners.
Yeah, man. So we'll see. We'll see what what his 140 career looks like. But
Absolutely.
we got an announcement today. We were hearing this through the grapevine, but it was officially made. Today, Fox Sports pay-per-view, the return of Deontay Wilder. Following, this is his first fight back since his loss to Tyson Fury in their third fight. And he is facing Robert Helenius, who's coming off of knocking out your man, I always mispronounce his name, Kowalski, the Polish Prince. They had 2 fights, and he stopped him in both of them. So
a puncher.
Yeah. And listen, man, Deontay Wilder days after this fight, I should say, is going to be 37 years old. And when after the third Tyson Fury fight, just the way it ended, I would have been okay. I didn't guarantee he was retiring. I just personally thought like they really need to think this through as a concern. So it was a couple months, or not even like maybe a month ago. We were hearing like this may be the fight, and I was like, wow, Now a heavyweight, listen, with all due respect, a heavyweight, you don't have a lot of guys like. All right, so and this is no disrespect like to Chris Bird. Chris Bird was a phenomenal boxer. Didn't have the punching power.
Shout out to the Bird family.
Family. But
good homie, y'all. I met them some years ago. Good people.
Yeah. They like you don't have heavyweights like that. Like that really the skills were just. I mean, forget the Klitschko fight, but most heavyweights have a punch, so it's always kind of that when we say you never know, right? In heavyweight boxing, there has been a lot of you never knows. What concerns me with this fight is the fact that Deontay Wilder, man, is coming off 2 fights that he was hurt really bad, and he's now going in against another puncher who, look, I don't think is elite, but it's like you wonder, and we're gonna know. You just wonder what the punch resistance is going forward now, and
that's 2 words that I take very seriously, and that's punch resistance. That people don't realize, and I hate to pick on Amir Khan, but I'm gonna pick on Amir Khan, right? So Amir Khan got to a point of his career, literally, if you blew on him, he would fall down. So his punch resistance was shot pretty much, Still, reflexes was still there somewhat, still had the speed, but that punch resistance, when that go, because it don't take a lot of hardcore punches to put you down on the ground.
Right.
So, to your point, and this is where you kind of, I don't want to get too pathological and scientific here about the brain and CTE and all that type of stuff, because I don't have enough information and knowledge to speak on that. But I do know that, just speaking from a practical sense, if you keep getting knocked out like the way he's been dropped a bunch of times, he's been knocked out brutally. These was brutal knockouts too. Let's not forget, these wasn't just some flash knockdowns. He didn't get up. These are brutal knockdowns, and you're coming off these fights, and you're going to fight yet another puncher. Now, he's more skillful, but like you said, all it takes is one punch to change. This is the heavyweight division. It's the big boys, where one punch literally changes everything. And listen, I'm not telling Deontay Wilder he should retire. I just would have rather see him fight a guy that can't hurt him. Like, give me, and like you said, like a Chris Bird type of guy. Worst case scenario, you're going to outbox me, but you're not going to, knock me out. But listen, I guess he wants to challenge himself. Maybe it's just one of them Jones where he just, putting the pedal to the metal and just, testing the waters. So if that's what he's doing, the problem with that is that, your long-term health elements, Floyd always talk about having your faculties and all that. These are big guys pounding on each other. And again, he's not just losing, he's being knocked, he's being stopped. And people will say, well, he only how many times did him and Fury fight? 3 or 2? 3? 3. So he's knocked out in 2 of them, right? Because he won the first one, right? It was a draw. It was a draw.
Yeah.
But he got knocked out consecutive. So the last 36 rounds have been brutal. These are like 7 to 8 fights out of 3 fights that you might as well say was the equivalent of that.
Right.
So you just wonder, like, how much is there? How much is left? Look, we could be wrong. He can bomb this dude out in two rounds, and we back to talking about Fury and Wilder Part 4, which I don't think is a good idea. But I see, I'm sure you see these people. They be on Instagram. Oh, I just think, no, this isn't Marquez and Pacquiao. Marquez was never knocked out. He was knocked down a few times, but he was never knocked out. He weathered every storm. I said he was jet skiing on a tsunami.
And he was in all of those fights. And that's
he was in all of them. That's totally different.
It is. Now, that's not to say that Wilder, look, Wilder did drop Fury in the second fight twice.
Oh, the power never goes away from punches.
It never goes away.
Yeah, they never go away.
It's just, and I made this point to somebody, it's like, it's not so much of what he's going to be firing off, and Helenius knows it. I'm sure anybody would know that. But I'll tell you this, because of those 2 fights alone, the stigma of Deontay Wilder just naturally for somebody like Helenius is going to be going in there. Again, you don't want to fall asleep, but there were points where people were kind of afraid to fire off on Wilder because of what was coming back at them. But I don't think that might be the case in this instance because of what we're talking about. We're at least I don't think Helenius is going to sit there and not throw. Like, he's going to kind of try to, check what's going on, and that's what just worries me.
Do you think Khan is a good parallel to this conversation?
See, the thing with Khan, it's like, it's just, okay. So with Amir Khan, you wouldn't find many fights outside of Terrence Crawford where fighters had a batch of rounds winning against Amir Khan. Like statistically,
yeah.
like if you go back, people are like, "Oh yeah, but he just happened to get the Canelo fight, all those fights, right?" So to that point, right? If you go back to the first Fury fight, meaning Wilder, and go all the way to the last Fury fight, this is including the Luis Ortiz rematch. This is, again, the Brazil fight that ended very fast.
Right.
And then you have both Tyson Fury fights. I struggled to find at least 5 rounds where Deontay Wilder won. So again, it's like, what kind of Wilder do we have, man? We're going to find out. But these were things that were the Fury fights, to me, granted, they did damage, but I think there was just little things just prior that maybe were on the wall, man. So I don't know, man. It's really a slippery slope.
The only reason I was bringing up Khan is because that, like, his career was like, like you said, he would have these fights. He would be in the. I know what you're saying, like Wilder. He had fights. Winning, where he just brought out the equalizer. Where Khan, he overwhelmed you with his speed and his amateur style. I'll point you where Wilder was like, I could be losing on every card. I'm gonna just come back and knock you out.
Right.
But I think I'm more so speaking of, like, you kind of know how the fight's going to conclude with Khan and Fury. If they get touched up here, like, it's over. It's not. It's no coming back. Once these guys get to this point where their punch resistance is gone, because, like you brought up, it's a good point. I think people forget about the Ortiz fight. Like, Ortiz technically should have won that fight. And
he was winning the fight until he got knocked out.
Yeah. But I mean, woulda, coulda, but still.
Yeah, you're right.
He had him hurt, and I never wanted Wilder to take that third fight with Fury. I was just like, I personally would move on, because you took such a beating in the 2 fights, and granted, he wanted to prove himself and show that look. And he came out leveling off, jabbing to the solar plex. But Roberto, you and I know that's not how he fights. Oh, that's another thing. Speaking of that, I'm a firm believer of, like, I thought him and Mark Breland had a perfect marriage, stylistically. Look, Tyson Fury is just a bad matchup, no matter who his trainer is. It's hard teaching guys like Wilder, who's kind of a late bloomer with boxing, how to be a fundamentally technically sound fighter that late in his game, or I'm going to work around his strengths so I can hide his weaknesses. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I thought Mark Breland was really good from there. I don't know all what happened. I know it ended badly, but I just feel like that third fight, like, we knew that wasn't him. Like, he came out trying to box and fighting that didn't quick. Like he was Larry Holmes.
After like the 3rd, 4th round, he went back to again. We talk about habits.
What does what did Floyd Sr. say about Shane? He goes back to being jittery Shane.
Jittery.
It's true though. Like, he was right. When you get in trouble, you go back to who you are.
Yeah.
Not saying that fighters can't change, but look, we just saw Jermell Charlo, against Castaño, fight a whole different fight than we kind of used to seeing. He was on his toes boxing. Yeah. Stopping on a dime, rolling. So it's not saying that it can't be done. It can be done, but you gotta it has to be the right mixture. It gotta be the right opponent you're going against.
Yeah.
And the fighter, I think Jermell is probably more technically sound than Wilder. So you probably got some more room to work with in that respect. So I don't know, man. I'm with you. I just don't.
I think with Wilder, what you see is what you get at this stage. Yeah, he's going to be 37 years old. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's always going to be a big puncher. It's just our concern, really, man. It's just when and he is going to get hit outside of a first round knockout. That could happen. But
I know what he's doing though. I think that what they're trying to do is they're trying to there's a couple things that could play out for him. regardless what happened in this Anthony Joshua fight, I did think about this because you got to like think big picture with all this stuff. Maybe they're thinking like, well, if Joshua will win and Wilder win, and Fury doesn't get the fight, maybe that's a fight we can pursue. That's still a big fight, Joshua and Wilder, right?
Yeah. Well, it's again, it's like circumstantial,
Circumstantial, absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely.
If everything lines up,
everything got to line. Everything. So much got to go right. Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll segue into that, but that's October 15th, Fox pay-per-view.
Yeah.
The undercard.
Good undercard.
Caleb Plant, Anthony Durrell.
I'm telling people, don't sleep on Anthony Durrell in this fight.
Oh man, that what? I mean, at that point, the Benavidez fight wouldn't really make any sense. So it's just like, what is he doing?
I think Caleb Plant's going to win, but I'm just saying Durrell is be a live dog.
Oh yeah, for sure. So to segue into the heavyweights, we have what I also heard will have the Ring magazine title, which I thought was Tyson Fury's. Now he announced his retirement, right? Like, okay, we'll all know that. Like, you put it on the slow cooker, like or on the warm side of the barbecue.
The crock pot. That's the crock pot. Yeah.
Yeah. So this weekend we have the rematch taking place live in Saudi Arabia once again for Anthony Joshua as he yet again tries to recapture his world titles, losing them to Alexander Usyk some months ago. Seen the press conference and all the shenanigans and stuff.
He's looking like a Swiss Miss model. Usyk.
Yeah, look, man. This was for Anthony Joshua. This has been a roller coaster getting here. He has a new trainer now. He went on this Shot to Tribe and award tour, doing all the stopping.
With Muhammad, my man.
Yeah. And then he finally linked up with Robert Garcia, world-renowned trainer. There's not a lot we've seen with Anthony Joshua. I did hear there wasn't a lot of sparring. I don't know what that means. I'll be honest, man. Like, this is, I've seen before we hopped online. Like I told you, I'd seen the first fight a few times.
Hold on, hey Roberto, is not a lot of sparring. Is the new I don't write my rhymes down. I don't write my lyrics down. Is that the new? Is that the boxing version of that? Because we heard Tio say that too. Floyd didn't watch film. Tio said he don't spar. So is this like the hip hop version of I don't write my rhymes down?
Oh man, hey. I picked, listen, when we went into this first fight, I picked Joshua because I thought he was gonna impose his size. Usyk would give trouble, but Joshua would find a way to just land something, and then it would just be the cruiserweight really fighting the big heavyweight, right? And that didn't happen at all, man. It was really, I watched the fight like 3 times, and I could say I struggled to give Joshua more than like 3 rounds, if at that, man.
Yeah.
And even down the stretch, like we talked about, man, like you could argue Usyk was kind of like playing around with him. And even almost to the point at the end where he almost stopped him on the ropes. And I'll pass it to you, but before I make my prediction, but
okay,
it's I guess for the side of Usyk, it's also too people wondering like has the time like now he didn't go to the Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he went there directly, and he didn't go to war or anything, but obviously he has been dealing with stuff, beyond boxing. So people are wondering, was the preparation on point? Is he okay up here? Is he maybe just like bluffing? Maybe he's not like fully prepared, or are we going to get kind of a continuation of what we got in round 12. So I'll hand it to you.
I think that a lot of this is gamemanship. What Usyk is doing, because at first I was like, is he putting those silk pajamas on? The famous phrase that was dubbed by Bernard Hopkins. The fighter was comfortable. And I was like, I'm starting to get a little Tyson Fury vibe from him, where it's like he's playing the bumbling idiot role, but really, his looks are good. But he's really working and training hard. Because like Usyk strikes me for a guy that works on his craft. You can just tell the way he fights. Like, he do a lot of little crafty stuff and a lot of fundamentally sound stuff. So guys that do that, they're not playing around like bumbling idiots all year. Like you work. And I'm gonna go back to Andre Ward, because it's funny. Anything you boxing wise, you can go back to Andre Ward. And I remember something Andre Ward always says. He says, to be great, you got to work on the same small things over and over again. Just working on throw a 1-2, do it 1,000 times. And that's what the mediocre fighters don't get versus the great one. You work on small things over and over. And for Usyk, for me, like you said, it's those little subtle things that he do, the anglings and the turns, and, how to take a fighter for a piggyback ride on his back, and throw you on the ground like a little kid, So he's just, it's like hard. It's like one of these fighters you got to watch, and we can watch it together and look like, oh, did you catch that? Or did you just see that little? He may look a punch off and throw a feint and no look left hand to the body. He just do these little subtle things. But Joshua, who I picked in the first fight too, and I'm serious about this. Like, one day he looks like Frank Bruno, and then sometimes he shows some flashes of Linux, a poor version of him, but his upper body movement is very stiff. He's not a fluid fighter. He fights very robotic, right? I think he's a fighter that got better as time went on. He's not a bum or anything like that. He's better than what I thought he was. The difference between him knowing like a Riddick Bowe or Larry Holmes, and I know it's not fair because these are the creme type guys.
Yeah.
But the difference, those guys, they were light on their feet. They were very fluid. They were very nimble. And they set stuff up. Like, Joshua don't really set punches up. He throws a jab, but it's like a bullshit jab. Like, he'll put it out there, and then it just kind of goes away. He gets frustrated real easily. So he goes back to in his mode where he just kind of following and just looking and watching stuff. And that's when a guy like Usyk, who's real crafty, know how to steal stuff in between. I just think that, man, this is tough. I'm a firm believer of when a guy has a book on something, he aces the test the next time around. And I always go with the better boxer. I don't think we're going to equate either of these guys as punching. Like, Joshua, like, got power, but it's more systematic. He got to work to it. He's not like a one-punch knockout artist like Wilder. He's right. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to put enough work in to stop Usyk. So if he can't stop him, to stop Usyk, that means he's going to have to pretty much have control of the fight. He's going to have to set up a lot of stuff in order to get to that point. So if he's not setting up punches, that means he's going to be probably walking into a lot of punches. Mm-hmm. I just think that Usyk kind of saw this style already, and the trickery and the craftsmanship that we talk about, I think it's going to be on full display. And I think you'll probably kind of get this. I think we're going to kind of get the same fight, to be honest with you. Like a 9-3. Maybe Josh was a little bit more competitive, 8-4, but I think Usyk wins the fight.
Yeah, man. I just look at who's bringing more baggage to the table this time around, man. And it's like you can't help but think it's Joshua, and he's got. This is the second time where he's had to like prove, like, try to get all those titles back and say, the first fight was a fluke or whatever. He's with a new trainer, and we know what it is when you get with a new trainer, new temperaments, even for the trainer, like it's new things for them too. Yeah, as it concerns the temperament of a fighter. And we talk about habits. Yeah, you brought up habits, right? It's it's something that I feel with Joshua in this fight ultimately, and I don't think in the beginning, but to your point, man, Usyk is somebody that you made the point where Ward talks about working on those little subtle things. Like this is a real Bruce Lee had a real quote. This is a real quote. He says, I don't fear the man that knows 1,000 moves, but the man that can do one or two things 5 or 10,000 times. And it's to that point. It's to that point because you don't think about it, it just happens. That was his point. And to that point, Usyk does those guys with him, Lomachenko, like we never sit here and try to make comparisons to the all-time greats and stuff. But as far as like when you talk about what we complain about with other fighters, the work ethic, and working on your craft and going in there and just asserting yourself and saying this is my game plan and I'm not straying away from it. And if you in the first fight, Usyk, even at points where he got hit, like came back with something. I was like, oh, look at that. I just think there's just a mountain of pressure on Joshua, and I just think with Usyk, this isn't like what some people are thinking. Like this is gonna be Andy Ruiz again. Nah, man, listen.
Oh no!
This is completely different can of worms, man.
Pony. That's what I'm saying. Like, no, he was a one-trick pony. All due respect to Andy Ruiz, you know what I mean? Yeah, one-trick pony. And this is, and I was talking to a guy early, Roberto, and this is where I don't think people like. And this is for boxing fans, not just casual. I think some boxing fans, stuff got to be right in front of them to understand it. And you go to guys like a Ward, or even Bernard type, like some of the stuff that they're doing is not flashy and it's not glamorous, but it's so damn effective and frustrating.
Yeah.
Like Usyk, he was even like, he does this thing where he like probes the jab.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, he probes. While he's probing the jab, so Joshua was. See, the thing about it is, this is the thing about late bloomers, guys like Joshua. His style is so complicated to him. He's not used to dealing with this type of style. He fought guys that's kind of right in front of him that were hittable and not doing all this trickery stuff that he's used to. That's why he wanted an American. Why do you think he wanted an American trainer? All due respect to the people overseas, but he wanted an American trainer because Usyk, let's be honest, fight like an American style fighter, like he's out of Detroit. Tony Harrison, shout out to him. No, serious, like, you know what I mean? Like, why do you think nobody wants to fight Tony Harrison?
Right. He was,
so
yeah.
Not that Tony Harrison and Usyk is the same fighters, but trickery is I always say this. I'd rather fight a guy that knock people out than a guy that's got tricks and crafty. I think that if I'm a trainer or my advisor, my fighter, we staying away for those guys. At least with a puncher, I just got to neutralize that. I just got one thing to worry about, not 50 million things.
Remember what Manny Stewart said to
Jermaine Taylor?
Jermaine Taylor, we should have
fought Miranda. Was it Miranda?
He goes, "You told you we should have fought Miranda because
we should have fought Miranda.
Corey Spinks." And he's like,
but that quote right there is because he know where Spinks is. He know his pedigree, where he came from.
Yeah.
Like he like no, like this guy's a fighter. Like this is too complicated to deal with, So I don't know, man. So I'm going with Usyk. I don't think he's gonna stop Joshua. I just think that he's just gonna win another convincing fight.
Yo, man, listen. I'm gonna hop off the cliff. I'm calling stoppage, man. Late.
Word?
Yeah.
Late.
I'll say this for this reason. There was things towards the end of that fight that I thought, like to my point, like I thought he was kind of carrying him, man, and then he kind of let loose.
I gotta watch it. I only watched it one time, but I got so much muscle memory from that fight.
He hurt him in the 5th round, which is crazy. I was like,
did he back off, or was it?
Well, it's to that point. He probed him,
Yeah.
And he came with the left cross,
Yeah.
like you don't even he didn't even see it, and then like you just see. And again, Joshua's another one. I don't worry about his punch resistance more so than with Wilder's, but he's somebody else too that when he gets hit, you start to worry. And then we'll find out with Usyk, he's not like a big, huge heavyweight, but what's crazy is that when we historically look at the heavyweights we saw in the 80s and some in the 70s or whatever, we've just seen these uber heavyweights, but a normal heavyweight would be what? Anywhere from 6'2" to 6'4".
It would be Usyk size.
220, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I was like,
big,
I was looking at it.
He big as hell, pause, but he big. Like, but Josh was so damn tall. Like,
right. He put like, I want to see the weigh-ins, but they're saying I don't know if it was who was in camp with him, if it was Khan or one of these that saw him. They're like, yo, he looks like not like he gained a lot of weight, but he's like strong. Like, so again, it's not
he's a real good fighter,
contest, but you're dealing with somebody that is bringing the pedigree and it might be bringing just a little bit more strength. I mean, I don't know. Well, it's
right.
To see but my prediction, man, I'm gonna hop off the cliff. I just think
that's a mic drop.
Too much going on.
Yeah,
brand new trainer.
I'm not a big fan of the fourth trainer. I'm just not. Yeah.
Not a fan hopping into a big fight like this.
Nah, not the first. Let's get one fight under your belt first, then we do that. But to bring Ryan Garcia, I mean, damn, I'm forgetting.
Robert Garcia.
Yeah, big bro, Mikey, big bro.
Yeah,
Robert Garcia is a good trainer, but they got a nice program out in what is it, Oxnard? What part of California?
Oxnard, yeah.
Oxnard, California. Fernando Vargas was out there. Yeah. He was a good fighter himself. Robert, Madonna, that was the perfect pairing, him and Madonna. Madonna was an awkward guy who gave people problems because of his awkwardness. You asking a guy who picked up boxing kind of very stiff guy, very stiff. So he looks clumsy at times, and so when you got a clumsy guy going against a guy that's very good on his feet, so some of this stuff some of this stuff is simple. Like you just break footwork down.
I think with a lot of us, we needed to see the first fight because a lot of our question mark was how good of a heavyweight is Usyk.
That was the only reason why I picked Josh. I thought he was going to
Me too. And that fight proved to me, outside of, again, like, there's still the anomaly of Tyson. And again, this is just to be fair. Like, would it shock me if Wilder went in and knocked out Usyk? Absolutely not.
No,
because he has that one punch
style. And I would say styles make fights. Like Wilder has equalizer, so all he gotta do is catch you. Yeah. So, but I think if Usyk wins, I still think the Wilder and Joshua fight might be the route to go because Usyk is going to be chasing Fury at that point.
Yeah.
I think that's a bigger fight for both of them. Joshua and Wilder it's a second place fight, but it's still good business.
But listen, also too, man. Listen, we came from an era where heavyweights, man, they not every fight
they all for it,
no
matter who lost what. Yeah, no, you're right. That's the problem with boxing too. It's like, all right, cool, you lost, he lost. Let's run it.
Y'all can fight, like And sometimes that made for like classic
better
fights,
business.
Man.
It may be better business. That's what's missing in boxing. You always say that. These guys don't know how to create their own business. They try to create other people's business when you can create your own business.
Yeah. But, and before we part, like one major component too, we've talked about this so much. And like in recent, because of how boxing is right now, man, I try to explain to people who listen that don't come from the HBO era. There was a point in time where, in this case, Showtime, it has their platform. But HBO at one point had the door open to everybody where they were the ones that wanted to make those fights to put on their network and on their platform. And we got some of the greatest fights out of there. Like, listen, not every fight was a world title fight.
HBO after dark. Remember Friday nights?
Yeah. We saw some of
Good
the greatest fights on there.
Is boxing has become so top heavy, right?
Yeah.
So top heavy. There's nothing on the main floor, you know? Everything is the basement and the penthouse.
And up there, right.
Yeah, nothing in between. Then so what happens is mediocre guys start having champagne taste, you know, with 40-ounce money. So they start talking about, oh, I want to fight this guy. I'm only going to fight that guy. And
right.
But you get this subtle pause that you get in between fights.
Yeah, man.
All right, man. Like, you know, maybe we'll come back on Saturday after the fight.
Well, I'll be in Orlando.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. Well, Sunday. Maybe we can do a Sunday brunch.
Yeah, I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back on Sunday. Yeah. If anything crazy.
Yeah, I definitely want to chop it up and talk about it. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So we both got Usyk. You got him by stoppage.
I got Usyk by late stoppage.
Looking forward to it, man. Maybe we'll be wrong. Maybe Anthony Joshua, you know, going to work on some tricks. You know, he's 1-0 in rematches, right?
Hey, yeah. Hey, listen, this is heavyweight boxing, man. This is why
anything can happen. One punch can change everything.
Yeah, it's always been a division that you always had to just keep your eye on, man, because you just never know, man. So, but we'll be back. You know, we'll see.
Hopefully, we got a damn decision when we announcement when we come back.
Yo, we need like ASAP. Crawford, Spence, please, let's hurry it up. We gotta set up plans.
All right,
man, we're out, man.
All right, one.
Yeah.